Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals Season 5 is now here, and I thought we'd take a look at all the new things with Gambit and Rogue. We're covering the trailer, the voice lines, the story, and all the little lore in between. I've wanted to talk about Marvel Rivals for quite a bit, and Season 5 seems the perfect point to do it. It's out right now, and you can go and play it right away. If you already have or are looking to start, then this video will hopefully fill in some of the blanks of the story. Now, Rogue and Gambit are of course iconic X-Men, but if you somehow don't know them, here's a quick little rundown. Rogue drains people's life force, powers, and memories through just a touch, while Gambit can infuse any object with kinetic energy. They're a great duo in the comics, and this all comes across to Marvel Rivals. Now, the Season 5 trailer introduces how they're going to be in the game, so throughout this video we're going to break bits of that down. As we see, the trailer opens on Krakoa, which has been decorated for Rogue and Gambit's wedding, and this exact spot is the Grove mission area on the Krakoa domination map, which Gambit mentions here.
This is the very spot Rogue and I said I'd do. Best choice I ever made.
Now, before we get any further, this entire scene is actually a flashback. This all occurs during Season 0, right before Doctor Doom split the time stream. So even though Rogue and Gambit are only playable starting this season, they've always been part of the lore. This wedding is also a callback to the comics. Even the flowers look exactly the same, which I appreciate. But there's a massive difference between their comic wedding and the wedding we see here. In the comics, they get married after Kitty Pryde left Colossus at the altar. They basically take their spot because, weddings are expensive and this was already paid for, and we're saving some dough. However, in Rivals, this wedding's planned. In fact, the inciting incident for this season is the fact their wedding gets interrupted. And mate Gambit isn't too happy. Also, even though it's sunny in this clip, you can hear rain in the background, foreshadowing all the chaos to come. We then cut to a scene of Gambit, Wolverine, and Cyclops. Yes, this is the first time we've actually seen him in the game, and while he isn't playable, it's still exciting and potentially a hint of what's to come. If you remember, we saw Blade referenced in Season 1, but he didn't actually debut until Season 3. So fingers crossed this is the same situation. Wolverine then says,
"You sure you're making the right choice, bub?"
Which is a reference to Rogue's villainous past. In the comics, Rogue is essentially adopted by the villain's mistaken destiny, and Gambit actually references this in one of his voice lines.
Hurry! We got a date with Destiny, and I don't mean Rogue's mama.
Now, bit of trivia. When Rogue burst onto the scene in the 80s, she was Mystique's protege in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So when she became a probationary member of the X-Men, most of the X-Men weren't too happy, Wolverine included. In the comics, their relationship grew a lot, but it's possible that in the Rivals universe, this hasn't happened yet. Or maybe they never made amends. Also, this looks like the Wolverine skin from the Hellfire Gala in Season 2, which is kind of funny. It implies that Logan only has that one suit that he wears to everything, which honestly is pretty on brand for him. Now, this shot of Gambit and Rogue is a reference to their first day in X-Men 4 from 1992. And I have to say, I love the style here, like it genuinely looks like a comic book come to life. We also see all of the billboards and tall buildings behind him, which is probably a subtle promotion of the new Rivals map Times Square. And this map is like nothing we've seen in the game so far. It's not for combat, it's just a fun place to hang out with friends that's filled to the brim with lots of niche references. Have you ever wanted a flash mob of twerking Venoms? Or an army of blue shoe Jeffs? Well, in Times Square you can do that. But it's a lot of fun, and I highly suggest you check it out. We then see Gambit kneeling next to Rogue and get some fun tattoo details. The first reads Marie, which is Rogue's real name. On his right arm, his tattoo reads Nola, which is common shorthand for New Orleans, which is where Gambit's from. We then get a shot of Emma and Rogue. Now, look at how big and buff Rogue is compared to Emma. While Gambit's already playable, we won't get Rogue until Season 5.5. Because of this, there's also been a lot of debate about what role she'll fill. It was a big surprise to the community when Gambit was revealed as a strategist, so everyone's curious at what direction they'll take with Rogue. In the foreground of this shot, we then see Magneto, who says,
"You know how troubled his past is, yet you still chose him."
And this is a very loaded question. In the comics, Magneto and Rogue have a long history filled with flirtation, romance, and of course, alternative realities. And just like Rogue herself, Gambit has quite the past. Not only is he a legendary thief, which is constantly referenced in the game.
Is this really what it's come to? Working with petty thieves?
Who's the one being petty, home? Last I checked, we was both fighting the good fight.
But he also worked with Mr. Sinister, who we see on the king card of Gambit's deck. At one point, Gambit lost complete control of his powers and he went to Sinister for help. In order for Gambit to regain control, Sinister cut off some of his brain tissue. In return, Gambit led missions for him, including a particularly vicious massacre. So Magneto's wondering why Rogue wants to be with a murderer. And admittedly, that's a little rich coming from Magneto, but yeah, to each their own. Also, it's important to know that Gambit's not a fan of Magneto either. When Gambit kills him, he has a very cold voice line.
Should have put you down long ago, Eric.
Even though Gambit is clearly not Magneto's biggest fan, judging by that absolutely icy voice line, the two actually have a powerful team-up ability in Marvel Rivals. It's a fun contrast between their messy history and their surprisingly strong synergy in the game. In the same shot, the magnetic energy from Magneto's hand then transfers to Rogue's hair. This actually hints at an element of their relationship in the comics. For a long time, Magneto was one of the only people that could touch Rogue without, dying. This was because of the electromagnetic force around his body, which insulated him from her powers. But that isn't the case anymore, which is proven by the next shot. In the comics, Rogue's been able to control her powers enough to touch people since 2008, which is a feat she celebrated by kissing Gambit. Next, we see their wedding completely fall apart. The time stream entanglement bursts through Krakoa right before Gambit puts the ring on Rogue's finger. Then there's a gorgeous art piece created by Cardsuits. It looks like the art's made up of Chronovium itself, which could explain a lot of Gambit's motives this season. I'm getting ahead of myself there, but we will come back to it. There's then a ton of glitches of other rivals' romantic or romantic-ish pairings. The first is Cloak and Dagger, which, makes sense. We also see Storm and Black Panther, who were married in the comics. According to Gambit's lore story, it seems like they're still married in Rivals. Gambit says, "I got Stormy to reach out to her beau, Leroy de Wakanda." So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and that impression was bang on. However, we then see Wanda and Venom, which just really shocked me. I mean, Venom has voice lines flirting with her, but she always just immediately rebukes him.
"There is great chaos in you, woman. Chaos and darkness."
You're one to talk, Venom.
It was not an insult. We find it strangely attractive.
Somehow you just made me want to save the universe.
The battle starts in 5.
The other surprise pairing is Loki and Mantis. They don't have canon in the comics, but hey, let's have a team up. Now I think these two seemingly random pairings might point to someone messing with the Marvel Rivals universe, possibly using Chronovium. Then we get one last glimpse of Cyclops before their wedding rings are flung into the void forever. After the Rivals logo, we have a quick shot of the Grandmaster reaching out over this garden, and the Season 5 Battle Pass is actually named after this garden. Then we cut to Rogue and Gambit having a picnic, which is based off this shot from X-Men issue 8. And these are the only shots in the trailer that aren't flashbacks. This is currently where we are in the story. So the question is, how do we get from this to this? Well, for the next part of the video, I want to discuss some of the lore behind this. Okay, so when the time stream entanglement broke out, Krakoa was swept from the present timeline to 2099. Most people on the island were transported with it, including Rogue and Gambit. But, as we saw in the trailer, their rings were sucked into the void. Now, losing the rings hit Gambit hard. He told Rocket, "It haunted me that I wasn't able to give Rogue the symbol of my devotion she deserved." That impression not as good. So he wanted to make it up to Rogue by giving her a one-of-a-kind ring. That's how he got involved with the Elder, the Grandmaster. Now the Grandmaster is a new non-playable character in the world of Rivals, and he's the main antagonist for this season. In the comics, the Grandmaster has almost unlimited power and particularly enjoys using smaller heroes as pawns for his sick games. And that love of twisted games certainly extends into Rivals. His garden is filled with chess pieces, and in the description for the Season 5 Battle Pass trailer, it says, "Within the Grand Garden, the Elders of the Universe have gathered to test heroes in the games of fate." Gambit and Rogue are poised to be literal pawns in his game. But of course, Gambit didn't know all of this when he struck a deal with him for a brand new wedding ring. Wedding rings made out of Chronovium. Now Chronovium is a byproduct of the time stream entanglement itself, and it's very, very powerful. The Grandmaster forged it into a 20-sided die, probably for his games, but he vows to make it into a ring as long as Gambit steals a contract from the Collector, who is another Elder being. Now in his lore story, he says to Rocket that all he wants is the ring. However, this interaction with Storm implies something else.
Those were simpler times, Remy. Sometimes I wish we could go back.
Got me a chunk of Chronovium that says we can. Wanna come along?
And in the Season 5 trailer description, it says, Gambit sets out on a daring cosmic heist to steal the universe's rarest ring, and win back the moment time itself stole from them. So, with that, let's go back to the Season 5 trailer. Remember that piece of art that looked like it was forged out of Chronovium? Well, it depicted their wedding kiss, the kiss they never got to share because of the time stream entanglement breakout. So Gambit is going to use the Chronovium to either rewrite or go back in time so that they finally get their wedding day. But it's going to change the world in the process, which would explain some of the weirder pairings we saw within the trailer. Maybe he even accidentally erased Cyclops. After all, in the last shot, he was literally glitching. Also, as part of their deal, the Grandmaster gave Gambit a few upgrades that are directly linked to his abilities and gameplay in Rivals. In the lore story it says, the Grandmaster had used his power primordial to repair some damage to Gambit's frontal lobe. The process unlocked a new ability to infuse objects with non-explosive kinetic energy, kickstarting cellular regeneration in organic matter and enhancing healing capabilities. This makes his gameplay kit really unique. He has potential for a lot of damage, as you'd expect, but because of the Grandmaster's upgrades, he can wield his kinetic energy in an entirely new and rival-specific way. It's a really cool setup for the strategist, or strategist, depending on what day it is. I pronounce it different every time. The cards he uses in gameplay, though, are also a gift from the Grandmaster, so potentially they help him conduct the healing kinetic energy more easily. The Grandmaster's final promise to Gambit was that he could use the Grand Garden as the final stop in his honeymoon. So really, it seems like this entire contracting job was just a trap to get the two extremely powerful mutants to fight one another for the Grandmaster's enjoyment, which is pretty dark, mate. But yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know about Gambit so far. We also don't know much about Rogue as of yet, as she won't officially debut until season 5.5. But Gambit's lore story gives us some very important details about her. First of all, Gambit never told her about the deal with the Grandmaster. In fact, he tells Rocket, "She never would have let me follow through with it if she knew what I was up to." And I should be getting calls about playing Gambit in the next thing that they're doing. Why am I not in the game? But yeah, instead Gambit told her the intergalactic jaunt was just a honeymoon and nothing more. Rogue knows they're going to the Grand Garden, but she doesn't know Gambit made a deal with the Grandmaster to get the location. As for Rogue's, role in the game, we don't know much about her yet, but luckily, again, her debuts very soon, and I can't wait to see it there, especially with all the lore that'll be coming with it. This season is already so cool, and I'm so happy that we have another X-Men on the roster. While we wait for Rogue, there's also 44 completely free characters available, including heavy hitters like Daredevil, Magneto, and Phoenix. And you know what? Here's the thing. Yeah, apologies for the dad joke there. I genuinely can't help myself sometimes. It's my mutant power and my curse. But yeah, genuinely, Rivals is so much fun, and you can download the game today and have some very fun matches and keep up with the insane lore. And of course, love to hear your thoughts as well, and if you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. Also, if you'd like us to discuss the game more, then please drop a comment with the topics that you'd like to hear. If you want something else to watch, we also have a breakdown on screen right now, and with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.